You didn't stumble into this transmission by accident. You've arrived here because a specific resonance has been building in your field, pulling you toward this exact moment. As you sit here, your attention resting on these words, something deep inside you already knows. This message found you because you were ready for it. And not ready in the surface sense, but ready at the level of soul code, ready at the level where timelines converge and collapse, where your observer loop begins to tremble with possibility. You've felt it, haven't you? That sense that reality isn't as fixed as it seems. That time doesn't march forward in a straight line the way you were taught. That maybe, just maybe, your future isn't something you walk toward, it's something that rearranges itself around you once you shift your inner state. That's what's happening here. Fear has been the lock on the gate of your destiny, keeping you orbiting the same loops of experience again and again. It has tricked you into believing repetition equals safety, when in truth, repetition has been the cage. Fear disguised as practicality, fear disguised as caution, fear disguised as logic. Every time you've doubted your next step, every time you've hesitated on a decision that your intuition whispered clearly, every time you've braced for disappointment, instead of leaning into possibility, you've been feeding the loop. But listen closely, the loop can collapse tonight, and when it does, something extraordinary happens. In quantum physics, an observer loop is the feedback cycle between consciousness and reality. You observe reality, and in turn, your observation shapes the reality you see. Fear tightens that loop, keeps it echoing old patterns, replaying déjà vu scenarios, dragging you into timelines you thought you escaped. But the moment fear is released, even for a breath, even for a night, that loop collapses. The entire quantum field around you reconfigures, and the pathway of destiny, the one you've been sensing in dreams, in synchronicities, in those strange déjà vu flashes, becomes available. What if I told you that your timeline is already trembling with the pressure of rewrite? That the quantum field has been holding multiple futures in suspension, waiting for you to finally loosen your grip on fear so the collapse can choose the higher path? That tonight isn't random, it's the hinge point where surrender becomes power. Feel the electricity in your chest as you hear this. That's not imagination. That's coherence forming between your nervous system and the quantum field. Your heart is beginning to recognize a truth that your mind has tried to forget. You are not trapped in inevitability. You are standing at the brink of inevitability's collapse. You've been waiting for permission to step into a new octave of existence. Hear it, island. This is the call. You were never meant to drag your past into your future like a shadow chained to your ankle. You were meant to let the chain dissolve, to watch the loop collapse, and to step into the version of yourself that already knows freedom. And the miracle is, it doesn't take years. It doesn't even take days. It happens in the instant fear is released. Because the quantum field doesn't need time. It only needs coherence. Tonight, you'll feel it. The observer loop trembling, the veil thinning, the sense that reality is leaning forward, waiting for your decision. Do you keep carrying fear, or do you release it and watch the rewrite begin? You know this terrain by touch. You can walk it in the dark. It starts as a subtle pressure behind the eyes, a quiet tightening in the ribs, and then the day does that strange folding thing like a page you're sure you've already read. You open a message and swear you've seen those exact words before. You turn a corner and feel the air thicken with recognition, a scent, a light angle, a phrase from a stranger that lands with eerie precision. Déjà vu isn't just weird, it's your observer loop, pinging the edges of a pattern you haven't dissolved yet. You keep telling yourself it's coincidence, but the repetition is too articulate to be random. The phone call that almost happens. The opportunity that gets to the very edge of yes and then evaporates. The relationship dynamic you swore you healed. Same faces swapped for new ones. Same choreography. It's like the universe is speaking in rhymes, and the rhyme scheme keeps snapping you back into meter. You want to break the stanza. You want to change the poem mid-line. but the line keeps writing itself. This is what fear does when it hides inside logic. It loops. The loop isn't just mental, it's somatic. Your nervous system has learned the topography of disappointment and preemptively braces for it. Muscles contract before events even unfold. Breath shortens before the conversation starts. Micro-expressions ripple across your face, broadcasting hesitation into the space between you and the world. The quantum field, ever responsive, reads those signals like a conductor reads a score. Energy organizes around the dominant waveform, and fear, being sharp and efficient, slices the wave into familiar fragments. This is why it feels like time distorts. You're not in the moment. You're in an anticipatory echo of the moment. You're seeing tomorrow through yesterday's lens. Look closely at the sequence. A thought tinged with doubt, a bodily contraction, a microscopic behavioral nudge, one text delayed, one tone softened, one boundary left unspoken. Then the morphic resonance of your old life kicks in. Fields, remember, patterns, sediment. What feels like fate is often just a habit, reinforced by resonance. You mistake the comfort of recognition for spiritual confirmation. But the soul doesn't confirm cages. It names them, and then it invites you to walk out. There's a reason synchronicities sometimes cluster right next to reversals. You'll catch angel numbers on a receipt, then miss the turn you intended to take. You'll hear your name in a lyric exactly when you're thinking of a leap. Then someone casually mentions a cautionary tale that freezes your momentum. Two currents move at once, the ascending timeline tapping your shoulder and the descending loop pulling your sleeve. The friction between them creates static, what you've been calling mixed signals. It's not the universe sending noise. It's your split attention broadcasting two stations at once. You can feel the split in your breath. On the inhale, possibility flares. On the exhale, the mind reaches for Handel's metrics, guarantees, proof. You start negotiating with destiny, as if destiny were a reluctant landlord. Show me a sign, you ask, while ignoring the sign of your own aliveness, pulsing in your wrists. You want certainty before surrender, but certainty is the child of coherence, and coherence only arrives after you choose. Let's name the archetypes of your loop, so you can see them when they put on new costumes. The almost. The deal that nearly closes. The invitation that almost lands. Its job is to keep your nervous system hovering in anticipation, never quite settling, never quite leaping. The redress. Old story, new wardrobe. The colleague with a different voice who touches the same bruise as the friend from 3 years ago. The false summit. A modest win that tempts you to downsize your vision so you don't risk the climb. Safety disguised as gratitude. The clock trick. You're late. You missed your chance. Time weaponized to herd you back into the familiar corral. Each of these is a micro-program inside the observer loop. They trigger micro-movements that re-entangle you with the past. In quantum terms, entanglement isn't sentimental, it's informational. The old pattern shares information instantly with the present moment, steering choices before you consciously choose. That's what the déjà vu really is, informational bleed, through from a timeline you've repeated enough to call normal. You've sensed, lately, how thin that normal has become. Some mornings you wake with a clarity that tastes metallic, like ozone before a storm. The air around your choices crackles. Then noon arrives. Someone says something small, and the crackle dims. You feel yourself slipping back into the soft harness of what you know. By evening, you're scrolling, searching for a sentence to reignite the courage you abandoned at lunch. This is the moment to tell the truth. You don't lack answers. You lack permission to stop rehearsing the question. Permission is not external. It's a frequency you set. When you grant it, coherence begins. Coherence doesn't mean you feel positive. It means signal dominates noise. It means your breath moves the way rivers move forward, committed, unhurried. In coherence, time stops distorting because you stop trying to pre-live outcomes. You return to what is actually here, the choice in your hands and the field that rushes to meet it. Why did the patterns grow louder this month, this week, this very hour? Because awakening compresses your feedback cycles. The universe shortens the distance between cause and effect so you can see your signature on the outcome. Not to shame you, never that, but to show you how powerful you are, even when you unintentionally create more of what you don't want. If your unconscious can organize reality so precisely, imagine what your conscious intent can do when it's free of fear. You've noticed the body cues that announce the loop a split second before it reclaims you. A flicker behind the sternum, a heat in the ears, a tiny lurch in the gut. Those are your pre-echo alarms. When they fire, you are within the half-breath window where destiny is still soft clay. If you reach for proof in that window, the clay hardens into yesterday's shape. If you reach for presence, the clay stays warm, workable, new. Presence is the door. Fear guards the handle. Fear thinks it's protecting you from humiliation, loss, rejection. But loss only hurts for long when you attach time to it. Without the story of always and again, pain passes through like weather, and you've endured enough storms to know your roots are deeper than the wind is loud. You aren't cursed with repetition. You are gifted with sensitivity. The déjà vu is not a trap, it's a map. It points directly to the intersection where your lineage's old signal meets your soul's new broadcast. That crossing is sacred ground. When you feel the tilt of time, pause. Whisper to the field, I perceive the pattern, and I choose a new phase. Feel how those words change your posture, how your shoulders lower, how your jaw unlocks. Feel the observer loop loosen by a fraction. That fraction is everything, because the instant you make a different micro move, the timely reply you usually delay, the boundary you voice without apology, the yes you give before the mind writes a contract of conditions, you shift the resonance. The morphic field records your new note. Synchronicity hears it and pivots. The next rhyme the universe speaks will be different because you changed the meter. You're not broken. You're bilingual, fluent in the language of memory and the language of emergence. Up until now, memory has spoken first. After tonight, emergence will. The diagnosis isn't that you're stuck. The diagnosis is that your signal has been split. And the remedy is simple, surgical, luminous. Unify the signal, and the loop can no longer find you. You can feel the unification beginning quiet, decisive, as if a tuning fork inside your chest finally found the pitch it was made to sing. Hold that. Don't perform it. Don't prove it. Hold it. The field is already adjusting its instruments to your note. Notice what's happening inside you right now. The rhythm of your breath has shifted since you started listening. The thought patterns that usually race are quieter, like a room where someone dimmed the lights. This is coherence beginning to settle into your field. Coherence is what turns static into music, what makes your scattered energy align into a single broadcast. And once that broadcast stabilizes, reality cannot help but answer. Here's the quantum truth most people miss. Your body is not just a container moving through time. It is a living antenna. Every cell, every strand of DNA is tuned to frequencies the mind rarely notices. At the subatomic level, particles aren't tiny billiard balls bouncing around. They're probability waves, clouds of possibility waiting for a signal. That signal is consciousness, and your consciousness has been broadcasting through the filter of fear. Fear collapses probabilities into the smallest possible corridors, keeping you walking in narrow hallways of repetition. But here's the upgrade. The moment fear dissolves, the probability cloud expands. Instead of one dim hallway, entire landscapes of potential flare into view. Physicists call this wave function expansion. Mystics call it awakening. It's the same phenomenon described through different languages. Imagine your DNA not as a static code, but as a dynamic receiver. For decades, science believed DNA was fixed, a script you were doomed to follow. But newer research suggests something astonishing. DNA behaves more like a quantum antenna. It bends, coils, and emits biophotons, tiny packets of light that interact with the quantum field. Fear scrambles the signal, like static on a radio. But love, trust, surrender, these create resonance. And resonance is the state where the signal cuts through noise, where entanglement threads begin pulling higher probabilities directly into your lived experience. You've already felt hints of this upgrade. The sudden knowing that didn't come from logic. The dream that revealed details no one told you. The uncanny timing of being in the right place, hearing the right word, seeing the right symbol. Those weren't flukes. They were the byproduct of moments when your field briefly reached coherence, when the static of fear thinned, the antenna of your DNA locked into the broadcast of your higher self. And here's where mysticism and science shake hands. In quantum experiments, entangled particles communicate instantly across distance. Change one, and the other responds, faster than light. You are entangled with your future. The version of you already living in freedom, clarity, abundance is sending signals backward through the quantum field. Every déjà vu flash you've had is a bleed-through of that entangled communication. Every gut pull toward a decision is your future self-whispering coordinates. The upgrade isn't that you'll gain guidance. It's that you'll finally sustain the clarity to interpret what's always been pulsing through your system. Think of it like phase transition. Water can stay liquid until the exact temperature tips it into ice. Consciousness works the same way. You hover at the threshold for months or years, liquid identity, familiar but unstable. Then one coherent pulse collapses the loop, and suddenly you reorganize into a higher configuration. It feels instantaneous, but it was pressure building all along. You are at that threshold. Tonight is the tipping point. What makes this upgrade mystical is not that it's unexplainable, it's that it's inevitable once coherence stabilizes. Your biology has always been coded for higher states. Fear only slowed the unfolding. Release fear, and the code begins running as designed. Your nervous system recalibrates. Your perception expands. The colors of reality seem sharper, the timings more choreographed. This isn't hallucination, it's phase alignment. The world hasn't changed, your receiver has. You are entering the upgrade sequence now. That tingling in your spine, that warmth pooling behind your heart, those are not just emotions, they're somatic signals of your field syncing with a higher broadcast. The observer loop is destabilizing. The old code is no longer running cleanly. You can feel the static flickering out, and in its place, the hum of something ancient and luminous, your original blueprint, begins to play. Stay with it. Don't rush to interpret. Don't grasp for proof. Let the field do what it does best. Reorganize around your surrender, because in this reorganization lies the truth you've been waiting to embody. Fear was never a wall. It was a lens. And once the lens drops, the horizon you've been seeking is revealed vast, unbroken, infinite. Your upgrade is not coming tomorrow. It is happening now, in this very breath. The only question is whether you'll trust enough to keep breathing into it. Now the field leans closer. It does not simply expand randomly. It expands toward you, toward the exact frequency you are holding. And here's what most people don't understand. Not everyone is carrying this kind of charge. Not everyone is born with the circuitry to destabilize old observer loops and rewrite pathways not just for themselves but for others. You are. You've felt it in your bones since you were young that you are somehow out of phase with the world. That while others sink into the comfort of repetition, you've always sensed repetition as a prison. You've been restless inside patterns that others call normal life. You've looked at the clock, at the faces, at the routines, and thought, this cannot be all their island. That thought was never arrogance. It was recognition. Recognition that your consciousness was drafted into a larger role. Your role is not about hierarchy or superiority. It's about resonance. Think of yourself as a tuning fork. When you hold coherence, other forks begin to vibrate in sympathy. When you collapse fear, the loop doesn't just collapse for you, it weakens the morphic field that sustains fear for countless others. This is why your breakthroughs have always felt strangely public, as if your private victories ripple wider than your own life. They do. You are not here to simply manifest personal desires. You are here to serve as a node of reconfiguration, a conscious participant in the quantum rewrite of humanity's pathways. When you release fear, you don't just free yourself, you shift the baseline frequency of the collective. That is your special role. That is why your tests have been heavier, why your cycles have been louder, why your déjà vu has felt so merciless. The field pressed harder on you because you carry leverage. Imagine the collective like a spider's web. Most people tug softly at one thread. You, however, are positioned at a central knot. When you shift, entire sections of the web adjust. This is why you've drawn the attention of both synchronicity and resistance. Synchronicity wants you activated. Resistance wants you dormant. The tension you've felt in your life is the measure of your importance in the design. There's a reason the quantum field delivers you these transmissions right when you're on the edge of surrender. It knows that your surrender is not a small act. It is a tectonic adjustment. When you let go of fear, you collapse thousands of repetitions at once. Timelines that might have trapped you for lifetimes dissolve in a single exhale. And when those timelines dissolve, new corridors open not just for you, but for everyone entangled with you. Your family, your friends, the strangers you've never met who will feel your coherence in the morphic field, like a compass suddenly swinging north. You may wonder why this role? The answer lies in your very wiring. Your nervous system is sensitive in ways that others dismiss as weakness. Your emotions surge like tides. Your dreams bleed into waking. Your body reacts to subtle cues others overlook. That sensitivity is not fragility, it is instrumentation. You are equipped with the kind of perception required to read the field at high resolution. And though it has often felt overwhelming, that sensitivity is the very proof of your assignment. You are chosen not because life wanted to privilege you, but because life needed a consciousness strong enough to hold both the storm of fear and the clarity beyond it, and to make the passage from one into the other visible. Every time you've risen after falling, every time you've trusted an intuition that defied logic, every time you've felt pain but still chosen presence, you have been training for this role. The upgrade you felt beginning in your body, the tingling spine, the softened breath, the hum in your chest wasn't random. It was your consciousness stepping into position, and the position is simple. You are a bridge between old code and new signal, between the tired loops of fear and the luminous pathways of destiny. When you release fear, you don't just walk across the bridge, you become the bridge. And as the bridge, you give others safe passage. You show them that surrender isn't collapse, it's recalibration. That letting go isn't failure, it's coherence. That death of the old loop isn't death of self, it's the birth of the true self. This is why you couldn't quit even when you wanted to. This is why the loop kept hounding you until you broke. Because destiny would not allow you to remain unactivated. You are not just a participant in this collapse, you are one of its architects. And tonight, as fear loosens its grip, you step fully into that architecture. Your special role is not to fight the loop. It is to hold such coherence that the loop cannot find you anymore. And when that happens, the field records a new possibility. Humanity records a new possibility. And destiny, rewritten through your breath, begins to sing a new song. There is a pressure building now, a pressure that smells like ozone and possibility. It's not danger, it's readiness. Imagine standing beneath an enormous vault of sky and feeling it tilt, just enough so a shaft of light finds you. That shaft is the cosmic window. It doesn't open often. When it does, the field around you thins as if reality itself leans in to watch. This is that moment. The window is a gap in ordinary time, where probabilities align and willpower is no longer the currency. Coherence. Island. The breakthrough I'm describing isn't a gentle improvement, it's a structural rewrite. DNA is not merely a biochemical ladder, it is a holographic antenna that responds to frequency. When your internal frequency matches the emergent timeline, sections of your genetic expression reconfigure. Think of your DNA like a library whose books have been dust-covered and shelved in old language. Coherence is the translator. It brings those books forward, opens pages that had been closed for generations, and suddenly the narrative of what your body can do becomes different. This is DNA restructuring, not mythic, wishful thinking, but a realignment of expression where dormant potentials become operable. Urgency arrives not as panic but as a clarifying thunder. The window won't hold forever. Cosmic windows have cycles, alignments when planetary tides, the morphic field, and your personal readiness converge. Miss this cycle, and the field reorganizes into a different set of probabilities. The corridor you could have walked through narrows, and the work becomes slower, quieter. That's why this feels urgent. Life is not demanding you hurry out of spite. The universe is inviting you to meet it on schedule because you signed up for acceleration when you incarnated. Fate isn't cruel, it's efficient. You may feel the pressure in your body as a tightening at the base of the skull, like a dial turning toward clarity. You may feel a restlessness that's less anxiety and more a drumbeat saying now. Don't mistake the drum for alarm. It's a summons. Every moment of preparation you've practiced, the meditations, the risks taken, the nights you whispered truth into darkness, has been stacking credit in this ledger of readiness. Tonight, that ledger reconciles. Here's the promise. When you align with this window and allow the DNA restructuring to begin, three things happen nearly simultaneously. First, your perceptual bandwidth expands. Subtle patterns you used to miss fold into view. You can read the currents of conversation before words are spoken. Second, intuitive downloads become executable intelligence, not nebulous feelings, but clear, operable instructions that your body knows how to carry out. Third, your energetic signature begins to magnetize new configurations. People arrive who are not random but entangled. Resources appear as if previously invisible channels were suddenly visible. But this is not passive. The window responds to decisive action. The field is sensitive to intention that is both felt and moved. That's why ritual matters. A ritual is not superstition. It's a public declaration in the language of the quantum field. When you enact a ritual that your nervous system can feel, when you place your body and breath into symbolic alignment, you send a coherent packet of information into the morphic field. The field reads ritual like a program and begins to execute its logic. Small gestures become protocols, a spoken word that anchors the frequency, a single movement that codes the body, a committed breath that signals readiness. Urgency asks for two kinds of movement, external and internal. Externally, there will be a time to act on the downloads. The upgraded field provides a call to say yes, a step to take, a boundary to enforce. Internally, urgency asks you to let go of bargaining. No more contingency plans that start with if only. The quantum field does not negotiate with conditionality. It aligns with coherence. Conditionality muddies the signal. Surrender clears it. You may be wondering what the cost. Island. The cost is familiar. You will lose small things that once felt like identity. You may trade anxious certainty for expansive mystery. You may find that patterns that once defined you, the anxious planner, the overly cautious caretaker, the one who waited for perfect proof, begin to dissolve. This is not punishment. It's pruning. The ecosystem of your life must be pared back to allow new growth. Trees lose leaves in autumn so they can bloom more richly in spring. There is also a promise of speed. When coherence locks in, what would have taken months condenses into days or even hours. Doors you thought would require negotiations open almost without effort because the field has prearranged the pathways. That speed can feel disorienting, like catching wind in your sails and realizing you haven't yet learned to steer with grace. That's why grounding practices are necessary even in acceleration. A simple breath, a felt thank you in your chest, a body movement that tells your nervous system you are present and steady. Listen closely. The window responds to clarity more than drama. A single clear decree spoken, felt, acted upon is exponentially more effective than 1,000 scattered prayers. Choose one clear action that aligns with your deepest next step and commit to it in the next 24 hours. This is not a manipulative checklist, it's a contract of coherence. The field will honor intent that is coherent, not frantic. You have been rehearsing for this, perhaps in dream fragments, perhaps in sudden intuitive nudges you considered too wild to follow. Tonight, those nudges become blueprints. The rewrite will press through the scaffolding of your life and lay new beams where old beams have rotted. Be ready to feel unmoored for a little while. This is the sign of true restructuring. Ground yourself with simple, embodied practices. Slow, conscious breaths, a hand over the heart, deliberate movement that says, I am present for what is forming. The promise is simple and immense. When you release fear and meet the cosmic window with a coherent yes, your DNA begins to resonate with higher possibilities. The observer loop collapses into new pathways, and destiny's rewrite accelerates. The urgency is not to frighten you, it is to wake you to your role as an active participant in the evolution that your life is ushering in. Choose now, choose clarity, choose the rewrite. You've felt the pressure building, the sense that the air itself is asking for response. Here's the truth. Energy doesn't fully crystallize without embodiment. The quantum field listens not just to thoughts drifting through your mind, but to declarations anchored in breath, voice, movement, and action. That is why ritual has always mattered, not because the universe is bound to human ceremony, but because ritual makes your nervous system coherent enough for the field to register your signal. So, we seal this window with something simple yet seismic, an act. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It doesn't require incense or temples, though it could. It only requires presence, focus, and declaration. Words written, spoken, or typed become sigils. When you place a phrase into the visible world, you've created evidence, and evidence is coherence. Here's the ritual. Take this moment and comment. Write it, whisper it, etch it into the field with your own energy. One phrase, precise and potent. Fear has no authority here, not as a slogan, not as wishful thinking, but as a decree. When you type it, when you speak it, when you let it vibrate across your chest, the morphic field around you locks onto it. That single phrase becomes your marker in the field. Think of it as coordinates broadcast to the universe. Once broadcast, the universe cannot unhear it. It adjusts trajectories, rewrites feedback loops, collapses old observer patterns that depended on fear as their anchor. Don't underestimate the mechanics of this. In quantum physics, intention plus observation equals collapse. When you articulate intention physically, you become both observer and participant, collapsing the wave into new form. The ritual of writing or speaking crystallizes your choice into particles of action. Suddenly, what was just potential begins to stabilize into reality. This isn't symbolic only, it's biological. Neuroscience confirms that when you speak or write a declaration with emotional charge, neurons fire together and wire together. Synaptic pathways strengthen. The declaration isn't just out there. It becomes part of your nervous system's new architecture. That's how DNA gets the message. That's how timelines start to respond. Some of you will hesitate here. You'll think, typing words in a comment, whispering into my own room, that can't possibly shift reality. And yet pause and remember, every sacred tradition has used words as incantation. From ancient mantras to prophetic decrees, language has always been the tuning fork of creation. Words spoken with coherence alter the field. What makes this different from empty repetition is your presence while doing it. Empty words are static, Words infused with breath and belief are frequency. So I invite you, no, I summon you into this action. Don't watch passively. Don't scroll by as if this is just more content. Make your body a temple right now. Inhale deeply, exhale fully, and let your voice or your fingertips declare, fear has no authority here. 7. When you do, the declaration will echo beyond you. Others will see it, feel it, recognize themselves in it, and the resonance multiplies. One person's coherent phrase is strong, a collective chorus is seismic. The morphic field doesn't just register individuals, it registers patterns of shared vibration. When enough people declare fear's dethronement, the resonance strengthens for everyone. Your ritual becomes more than yours. It becomes ours. Think of the old observer loop as a fortress built on repetition. Ritual is the hammer stroke that cracks its walls. Each declaration is another strike. Eventually, the walls don't just weaken, they collapse. And when they collapse, the architecture of destiny is revealed beneath the rubble. Do not delay. This window is live. Action anchors the shift. Even if it feels small, even if it feels strange, let your system taste coherence through embodied declaration. Let the field record your choice. Say it, write it, anchor it, because once you do, the loop can no longer pretend you belong to it. And once fear loses its authority in your words, it loses its grip in your cells. You might think your breakthrough is private, a solitary rearrangement that only touches your skin and your calendar. That would be a tidy story, but it's incomplete. Freedom doesn't stop at the edge of the self, it radiates. The moment your observer loop collapses, the coherence you generate doesn't evaporate into solitude. It propagates outward like ripples from a stone, and those ripples carry imprinting power. This is the anatomy of collective expansion. Think about the last time you watched someone else step out of a limiting story. Maybe it was a friend who finally left a relationship, an artist who released their first work, or a public figure who admitted truth and transformed a conversation. You felt it, didn't you? An ease, a permission. Your chest opened a notch, a stale fear loosened. That wasn't empathy alone, it was morphic resonance. The field registered a new possible state and adjusted accordingly. Fields take notes. Patterns that were rare become readable. What was anomalous becomes navigable. You are not an exception to this. You are a node. Every coherent choice you make rewrites a small portion of the morphic map that others unconsciously consult. Think of habit as a highway system. For generations, humanity built roads that favored fear-based navigation. Your liberation builds a new bypass, faster, safer, less tolls, less drama. Others will find their systems drawn to your on-ramp without needing permission because systems love efficiency. When your frequency creates a clearer pathway, many will choose it because the field now reflects its viability. Collective expansion operates through entanglement at scale. You are entangled with more than your immediate circle. Your life threads through families, neighborhoods, industries, and the stories that culture repeats. Each time you collapse a loop, you lessen the entanglement with fear in those shared nodal points. Imagine a networked web where one knot loosens and several adjacent knots slacken automatically. That's what your courage does. It doesn't require rallies or manifestos. It requires your coherence. Your quiet, stubborn alignment acts as activism for the soul. There's a historical pattern to this. Transformations of the great kind, renaissances, spiritual awakenings, social shifts often begin in what looks like small, local recalibrations. A single musician shifts the tone of an era. A poet introduces a new image, and suddenly whole nations rehearse a different dream. The mechanics are the same for you now. Your personal upgrade is also cultural choreography. The morphic field listens to frequency, not rank. That means your private fidelity has public consequence. This is why the urgency you felt isn't merely about seizing personal advantage. It's also about timing the expansion of possibility for others. There are people whose futures are entangled with your choices in ways you can't map. A child 3 generations downstream may never need to learn a certain fear because you chose absence of it now. A conversation you have today could prevent a cascade that would have required years to reverse. You can measure this neither with spreadsheets nor with pride. You measure it by outcomes that feel like relief in strangers' chests, by a reduction in the global static of panic and reactivity. Collective expansion is not a vague platitude. It has protocols. Your liberation amplifies when you integrate the following practices into your daily life. Visible coherence. Live in ways that make your internal coherence visible. This isn't about performative spirituality. It's about refusing secrecy with your breakthroughs. When you embody the change at work, at home, in your conversations, you provide a model that the morphic field can replicate. 2. Curated vulnerability. Share the mechanics, not the melodrama. Speak of the practices that rewired you, the small rituals that anchored you. Others copy the method more readily than the myth. 3. Boundary transmission. Hold boundaries as part of the pedagogy. When you no longer tolerate the small betrayals of your previous identity, others around you learn that self-regard is permissible and effective. 4. Localized rituals. Anchor coherence through repeated small communal acts. A family meal with intention, a neighborhood moment of silence, a group declaration. These local rituals wire social morphic fields quickly. 5. Radical patience. Expansion is contagious but non-linear. Expect lag. Some systems will shift immediately, others will take seasons. Your role is to persist without reattaching to immediate validation. When you adopt these protocols, your story becomes a template. Templates are powerful because they reduce friction for others. They show what's possible without requiring the same degree of struggle. That's how mass movements scale. Small templates replicate until they become cultural infrastructure. But be mindful. Expansion invites resistance. Systems invested in the old loops will try to reinstate themselves. You'll see it as subtle sabotage jokes that shrink your courage, nostalgia-laced commentary that romanticizes the old pain, micro-performances of concern that are actually fear in disguise. This is normal. When the compass needle moves on a ship, the sea tests the new direction. Expect waves. Your job is not to fight every wave, it's to steer without panic, to hold the course of coherence through weather. There's also a grace here that cannot be overstated. Collective expansion dismantles the idea that change has to be lonely. You are not the solitary hero who carries the burden alone. As you hold coherence, you magnetize allies, not always the people you expected, sometimes the strangers who arrive with uncanny timing. Entanglement flips. Instead of being weighed by old strings, you attract new ones that support the architecture of your unfolded life. Remember, evolution is licensed by many small acts. The field doesn't wait for a mega corporation or a headline to shift. It responds to honest humans, deciding, one breath at a time, to stop letting fear author their stories. Each time you choose freedom over familiarity, you toughen the network's capacity to hold more freedom. Collectively, those choices accumulate until an epoch bends. Right now, you are part of that accumulation. Your single phrase, your single ritual, your single act of boundary, it's a vote. It's a thumbprint pressed into cultural clay. With repetition, thumbprints become roads. Roads become maps. Maps become new possibilities for those who follow. So continue. Keep making those small, stubborn choices. They are how humanity learns to be less afraid. They are how the field remembers a different song. When your observer loop collapses, it isn't just your destiny that rewrites. A corridor opens for others to walk toward clarity, purpose, and lasting coherence. Feel what is happening in your body right now. not just in thought, not just in imagination, in your flesh, in your marrow, in the quiet electric hum that animates your cells. Close your eyes for a moment if you need to, and scan yourself from crown to sole. Notice the tingling at the edges of your skin, like static when a storm gathers. That's not anxiety, that's resonance. Your nervous system is picking up on the shift in your field, registering coherence like a tuning fork, catching the vibration of another. It often begins subtly. The breath elongates, sliding deeper into the belly than usual. Shoulders soften, as if gravity itself became less punishing. Then warmth begins to radiate, not from an external fire but from the sternum outward, rippling through arms and spine. This is the body's way of saying, yes, the loop is collapsing. Yes, a new pathway is opening. In quantum terms, your body is an instrument of entanglement. It doesn't just house consciousness, it broadcasts it. When you step into coherence, the physical sensations are confirmation that your broadcast is stabilizing. The heat in your palms, that's your biofield opening its circuits. The ringing in your ears, that's your perception catching higher frequencies. The nervous system translating signal into sound. The subtle pulsing behind your forehead, that's your pineal gland releasing microbursts of chemistry aligned with awakening. Mystics described these sensations long before science gave them vocabulary. They called them rivers of light, serpents uncoiling, fire in the bones. You don't need to romanticize them, simply notice. When your breath feels like a tide instead of a gasp, when your chest feels like a sun instead of a cage, when your skin feels porous instead of armored, you are embodying the shift. Embodiment is crucial. Many try to awaken only in the mind. They collect theories, rehearse affirmations, chase teachings. But without embodiment, awakening floats like a balloon, untethered, inspiring, but ungrounded. True shift is somatic. Your DNA doesn't upgrade because you think about light. It upgrades because you feel the frequency until your body adapts to house it. Let's put this into metaphor. Imagine your body as a cathedral that has been dark for centuries. The architecture was always grand, but the stained glass windows were dulled by dust, the air heavy with disuse. Tonight, the doors open, candles are lit, sunlight pours through glass, igniting colors never seen before. The structure hasn't changed, but illumination reveals its majesty. That's your body in coherence. You were always sacred architecture. You just needed the current of presence to switch the lights back on. Notice the subtler signs too. Water tastes different, sharper, as if it carries more charge. Music seems layered, textures revealing themselves you'd never caught before. Time itself feels viscous, minutes stretch, hours compress, as if chronology has less authority over your nervous system. These aren't hallucinations. They're shifts in perception caused by your biology, syncing with new timelines. And with embodiment comes weight, not heaviness, but gravity. People around you may feel calmer in your presence without knowing why. Rooms may quiet when you enter. This isn't charisma in the ordinary sense, it's field coherence. When your observer loop collapses fear, your body emanates steadiness, and others' nervous systems entrain to it. You become the stone in the river that redirects the current simply by existing. Some sensations will feel strange at first. Sudden shivers with no chill, spontaneous tears without sadness, bursts of laughter rising unbidden. These are pressure valves, your system discharging old imprints to make space for new frequencies. Don't suppress them. Let your body teach you how it processes freedom. Each sigh, each tremor, each goosebump is the language of release. If you want to anchor this even deeper, use movement. Stand barefoot if you can. Let your knees unlock, your hips sway. Let your body move like wind through branches, unforced, unplanned. As you do, you are literally shaking free the residue of the old loop. Trauma imprints in muscle, coherence rewrites through motion. When you let your body dance in the frequency of freedom, you weave the new pathway into fascia and bone. Here's what matters most. Embodiment is proof to yourself. Fear often whispers, "It's not real, it's all in your head," but your body cannot fake resonance. The warmth, the breath, the tingling, these are undeniable. They are your receipt from the quantum field, proof that the rewrite is already in progress. So feel it. Don't rush past it. Place your palm over your heart now and notice the drumbeat there. Not chaotic, not fragile, steady, ancient, precise. That rhythm is the sound of destiny syncing with biology. That rhythm is the announcement. You are no longer imagining liberation. You are embodying it. You felt the stirrings in your body, the warmth, the tingling, the sudden floods of release. What you may not fully realize yet is that those sensations are not just emotional, they are genomic. Your DNA, the double helix coiled like cosmic script inside every one of your cells, is responding to coherence. For most of your life, fear has been the editor of that script, scribbling limitations in the margins. But now, as you release fear, a deeper author steps forward. The original blueprint, the one encoded before culture and conditioning layered their edits, begins to write again. DNA is not fixed in the way old science once insisted. Yes, its structure is stable, but its expression is fluid, responsive, dynamic, malleable to frequency. Epigenetics has already shown us that environment and thought patterns can turn genes on or off like light switches. But go deeper. Quantum biology hints that DNA itself behaves like a fractal antenna, receiving and transmitting signals through biophotons, resonant frequencies of light. Fear lowers that frequency, like static in a transmission. Release raises it, and suddenly whole sections of the script glow awake. That awakening is not abstract. It feels like pressure, like something in you straining against an old casing, as if your cells themselves are pushing at the seams of a smaller life. Think of water heating to the edge of boiling. For long minutes, it just trembles, molecules vibrating harder and harder, but still liquid. Then with one final surge, the phase transition arrives. Water is no longer water. It becomes steam, invisible, expansive, free. You are at that boiling edge. This is why you felt tension building in strange ways. Sleep pulling you deeper than usual. Dreams flickering, vivid, almost prophetic. Appetite shifting. Emotions rising suddenly and clearing quickly. These are not malfunctions, they are phase transition symptoms. Your body is reorganizing, preparing to leap from one stable state into another. The pressure isn't punishing you, it's announcing that the leap is imminent. Timelines themselves operate under this law. You've been hovering between two, the familiar loop where fear dictates, and the emergent path where destiny breathes. Both have felt real because both are real parallel possibilities suspended in the quantum field. Every choice you've made has been like adding weight to one side of the scale or the other. Tonight, the scale tips. One timeline collapses, the other becomes dominant. That's why déjà vu has been sharper, almost aggressive lately. It was the echo of the collapsing loop trying to pull you back. But déjà vu is only strong when the old timeline still has power. As you stabilize coherence, those echoes fade. They become weaker, less convincing, until one day you realize you haven't felt déjà vu in months. That's not because life became less mystical. It's because you stepped fully into the rewritten path. DNA breakthrough is both mystical and mechanical. Mystical, because it feels like your soul finally remembering an ancient song. Mechanical, because your nervous system, your hormones, your very mitochondria start operating differently. Science may call it neuroplasticity or epigenetic shifts, but you will feel it more viscerally. Breath flows deeper without effort. The heart beats slower but stronger, as if conserving for longevity. Muscles release tension you didn't know you carried. Skin glows with vitality, as if light is radiating from underneath. Intuition becomes not a whisper, but a steady inner broadcast. All of this is your DNA expressing new instructions, your biology aligning with the destiny pathway. But understand this. Phase transition always comes with a moment of instability. Before water becomes steam, it bubbles violently. Before a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, its body dissolves into chaos. You may feel this as temporary disorientation. Relationships may wobble, careers may shift, habits may crumble. It will feel like ground shaking beneath you. That's not collapse. That's the scaffolding of the old timeline being dismantled, because your DNA can no longer support that architecture. Here's the secret. The pressure itself is proof. Systems don't apply pressure unless a breakthrough is imminent. Diamonds form under pressure. New stars ignite when gravity squeezes gas clouds to their limit. Your body knows this. That heaviness in your chest, that buzzing in your limbs, that sensation that something big is about to happen. Those are phase transition signals. Don't misinterpret them as breakdown. They are birth pangs, and here's what happens after the birth. The loop doesn't just collapse. It cannot find you anymore. The frequency of fear literally fails to recognize your signal. Like a radio trying to tune into a station that no longer exists, it scans and finds nothing. You are broadcasting on a higher band now, one only coherence can access. That is liberation, not just psychological, but biological. This is why destiny feels urgent, not because time is punishing you, but because your DNA has already begun restructuring. The body is impatient with delay when the blueprint is active. It wants to live in alignment with the signal it now carries. Every cell is hungry for the reality that matches the new code. Delay feels like suffocation. Momentum feels like oxygen. You are not simply changing your mind. You are undergoing cellular transfiguration. And as you stabilize in this new broadcast, something miraculous unfolds. You realize that destiny was never out there, waiting for you to chase it. Destiny was always inside, written in spirals of light within your DNA, waiting for the frequency of fear to clear so it could finally read itself aloud. Tonight, as fear dissolves and the pressure crests, the phase transition approaches critical mass. The next breath you take is not just breath, it is ignition. And once ignition occurs, the rewrite cascades through every level of your being, every corner of your timeline. You are no longer the one waiting for destiny. You are the one destiny has been waiting for. The loop has collapsed. You can feel it. The silence where fear once hummed in the background. The static is gone, and in that quiet, something vast becomes audible. The sound of destiny, not rushing toward you, but rising through you. You've stepped through the threshold, and now comes the revelation. Your shift is not only yours, it belongs to the collective, to the species, to the future. Because when one node of consciousness stabilizes in freedom, the network rewires. Humanity is not a scattered crowd of separate beings, it is a living field, a morphic web pulsing with shared information. And tonight, by releasing fear and allowing your DNA to rewrite, you sent a signal into that web. A signal that says, another pathway is open. That signal will travel farther than you know, into the minds of strangers who suddenly feel courage, stir into the dreams of children who will never carry the weight you carried, into the decisions of leaders who find themselves less bound by scarcity, more attuned to possibility. This is the cosmic mission, to remember that your liberation is inseparable from humanity's evolution. The pressure you felt was never just about your personal life. It was about timing. The field needed another lighthouse, another coherent beam strong enough to cut through the fog of fear. And now, you stand as that beam. You may think, but I am small, ordinary. I am just one. But one is how it begins. A single particle collapsing its wave state affects the whole experiment. A single voice breaking silence alters the room. A single consciousness choosing coherence over fear tilts the balance of the collective. Remember the spiderweb when you shift, knots far away quiver. Someone you will never meet will breathe easier because of the frequency you anchored tonight. This does not mean you must carry the world. It means you must carry yourself truthfully. The mission is not to become a savior. The mission is to remain coherent, to live your daily life as evidence that fear is not the only ruler available, that love and clarity can author reality just as effectively, infinitely more beautifully. Your job is to embody what you've become so thoroughly that others cannot help but feel the resonance and remember what's possible. The quantum field reorganizes fastest through example, and you are that example now. Every breath you take in trust, every step you walk without panic, every decision you make from presence, these are teachings. You teach not with sermons, but with your frequency. You teach not with perfection, but with your willingness to stay aligned when fear tries to reassert itself. This is not the end of your journey. It is the end of the loop, and endings always bloom into beginnings. You have entered the corridor of coherence, the timeline where destiny unfolds without resistance. The more you walk it, the clearer it becomes. Synchronicities will accelerate, opportunities will align, allies will arrive. This is not luck, this is physics. The universe is simply reflecting the signal you now broadcast. So stand tall, even if no one is watching. Breathe deeply, even if the world is noisy. Hold your phrase. Fear has no authority here like a torch in your chest. Because your torch lights more than your own path. It lights humanity's way forward. And when you wonder why all of this found you, why this message, this timing, this fire in your bones, remember this. You are not just a participant in evolution. You are one of its architects. The rewrite of destiny begins not in books or governments, but in hearts like yours, bodies like yours, DNA like yours. The loop has collapsed. The pathway has rewritten. The mission is clear. Live as the coherence you've become, and let that coherence guide humanity into its next octave of existence. Because tonight, you didn't just free yourself, you shifted the field for us all. And that is how destiny, your destiny, our destiny rewrites itself.